So what does the buyer timeline typically look like in Massachusetts? Hi, I'm Bobby Dreiss with Lamakia Realty. So one of the first steps that I recommend buyers do is get a pre-approval. And the reason for this is going to do a couple things. One is going to give you kind of a figure that you're approved for X amount of dollars. So that gives you a budget to work with. But in addition to that, I recommend that you talk to your lender about what are those monthly payments realistically going to look like at that price point. And make sure you're comfortable with those monthly payments. If not, then you can potentially modify your budget in order to accommodate a monthly payment that you would be comfortable with. Okay. Number two, it's also going to allow you, there are numerous loan products out there, and so it's going to allow you to look around and explore these different options and see which ones work best for you and your situation, and for which ones would work best for the type of property that you're looking for. And lastly, having a pre-approval really does, when you can put it in with an offer, really does strengthen an offer. And that can mean the difference between having your offer accepted or not. So very important to get that pre-approval. Once you have that, now it's time to start seriously looking at homes. And so when you're going around looking at homes, how long that's going to take really depends client to client. It depends on what a client's looking for in a home, what the current inventory is on homes that are what the client is looking for. And lastly, it kind of depends on how much time the client has available to them to actually look for homes. So that's going to be our biggest variable in the entire process of how long it takes to close on a property in most cases, is how long it takes the client to find the right property. Once they do find the right property and they get an offer accepted, then I find the timeline usually runs between 35 to 45 days in most cases. With that said, there are exceptions. I have seen closings in under 2 weeks, and I've seen some closings that have taken months to close. But most fall in that 35 to 45 day range. So what's going to happen in that 35 to 45 day range? Well, you've got the offer accepted. Now keep in mind there is a deposit expected with that offer, and that deposit actually makes the offer binding. Okay. We move into the inspection period. The inspection period is a period of time usually around the 7-day mark, but once again, I've seen it shorter, I've seen it longer. We got to make sure that the inspection period accommodates the buyer and what they need for the inspection. So during this inspection period, you as a buyer can bring in a licensed inspector to come in and look through the house. That inspector is going to give you a report at the end that's going to basically highlight every issue that inspector found. Okay, they're going to give you a lot of information about this house. Inspections are not pass or fail. They just list out what they found in the house, and then you as the buyer decide what you want to do moving forward. So one of the options with the inspection period is you can decide that the house is just not the right house for you and move on. Another thing you can do is you can potentially, if there is a major issue that needs to be addressed, you can potentially go back and talk to the seller, renegotiate, and come up with a new agreement of how we want to move forward with you still purchasing the home. Okay? So after the inspection period, we have the purchase and sale. Now in Massachusetts, we typically have 2 attorneys involved. Typically the seller has an attorney, the buyer has an attorney. Again, always some exceptions out there, but that's what we find most of the time. Those attorneys are going to take the original offer to purchase. They're going to take any addendums that might have come up from the inspection period, and they're going to combine that and expand upon that to create the purchase and sale agreement, which would be the agreement we use moving forward. Purchase and sale usually happens about 14 days, give or take a little bit, after the offer is accepted. So at the time of the purchase and sale, you can expect that there is another deposit expected. So again, in Massachusetts, we typically have 2 deposits that go down for the house. After the purchase and sale, if you haven't done so already, you need to make sure you've contacted your lender to let them know that you are buying this particular property, because one of the things your lender is going to do is send an appraiser out to the property, and that appraiser is going to come out. Their job, they're sent by the bank primarily because their job is to protect the bank, make sure the bank's not overlending. At the same point, knowing whether or not a property appraised at the offered price for a buyer is also very important. So again, it's protection for the buyer as well. And the next step is going to be our mortgage commitment date. This is going to be the date that we're looking for the lender to give us a thumbs up that they're going to come through with the money. If there is any issue at all with the lender coming through with the money, okay, this would be the last date that you have in order to walk away from the deal and still get your deposit back. So a very important date to protect the buyer. I always have it on my calendar for all of my clients. After the mortgage commitment date, what we get from the lender is cleared to close, and that tells us that the lender is prepared to bring the money to the closing table. One of the sweetest words we ever hear in real estate is cleared to close. So moving on past that, we're starting to get towards closing. So the things we have to do prior to closing is we do need to do a final walkthrough, okay? So the point of a final walkthrough is to make sure the house is in the condition that it's supposed to be in when you go to buy it. And so what that means is, in most cases, the house should be vacant. The house shouldn't have any leftover furniture or trash in it. In most cases, it should be broom swept condition, so it should be relatively clean. Okay? If there were, say, any repairs that were required after the inspection, we would want to make sure that those repairs were done prior to close. Okay? So this typically happens within 24 hours of closing. You could do it the morning of closing, you can do it the day before closing, kind of whatever fits into your schedule. Okay? Once you've got the green light that this house is in the condition it's supposed to be in, then we're ready for close. Typically happens in your attorney's office. You close on the property. They tend to schedule closings in the morning, and what that allows them to do is, after the closing happens, then they still have to record it with the Registry of Deeds. And so oftentimes they'll do the closing in the morning, which gives them time to close, in the early afternoon. Once that happens, you can get your keys. Congratulations, you're a homeowner.